This is Randy from Kion, and today we're going to go through a little bit of a back-end deep dive and the workflow overview of the Kion and ServiceNow integration. If you watch the installation and configuration video, we left off having just configured Kion and syncing all of our data over to ServiceNow. Now, let's take a deeper dive into what's actually happening on the back end with the integration. In addition to syncing all of this information into ServiceNow, we actually can leverage this to use our most popular integration, which is the new account and project request workflow. As mentioned in the previous video, or as a recap, within your service catalog, there is now a new catalog item called New Project Request. Essentially, what this allows you to do is create a Kion project, a new cloud account, whether that's an Azure subscription or resource group, a AWS account, a Google Cloud project, align it to a particular budget and cost center or funding source inside of Kion, and set this up for full access within the Kion application. So to begin, let's take a look at actually what happens here. First, I'm going to give my project a name. So let's use this demo project example. Let's go ahead and create, say, an AWS account first. And again, this is now pulling from where inside of my Kion environment this new account and new project will be created. I'm going to use engineering. If I had to understand more about this, I could also preview this and see when this particular OU is created, the ID of it inside of Kion that we're going to be using, any other information that might be relevant to this particular item. For OUs themselves, there's not a ton of information that we store inside of Kion and pull through to ServiceNow. Next, we're going to choose which billing source, so which AWS organization we want to create this account in. For me, I only have one inside of this environment, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. I'll choose a project start date. Let's just choose September 1st, as well as an end date that I might want to include inside of Kion. I'll just choose something later next year. Next, I can choose what my budget looks like, the individual cost center that might be funding this, say finance, and who owns this project. This is for Abe's new cloud account. Upload any attachments that I might want. And I could do multiples of these if I were to add it to the cart, or I could just go ahead and order this now. When I order this now, this is what's going to essentially kick off the backend workflow. We will get more into the backend workflow later, but we'll notice that right away, our request opened an internal REQ. Within here, we have a requested item or a RITM, and we see that there are a number of steps that are waiting to happen. On the back end of ServiceNow, what we've actually done is we're using our integration hub spoke with a workflow designer. You can see this if you, in ServiceNow, decide to go to your flow designer within your integration hub area. You'll notice that a number of different flows were created, everything from rotating our API key nightly, as I mentioned, to creating a project and converting the account cache. Everything kind of rolls up to this new project request. For those that might be unfamiliar, these integration hub spokes allow us to reuse these. You can think of these as Lego blocks. We've essentially assembled the Lego for you, but you can remove these blocks and use them in your own workflows as well. So here we can walk through what's actually happening on the back end of this new project request. Here we see that we're beginning by getting some of the variables from Kion, setting those variables, and then beginning to go through the process. So we're looking up our general settings, looking up our Kion data records, and then we're getting into some of the approvals here. One of the easiest ways to notice what's actually hitting Kion is that we've included our Kion logo on these particular building blocks. So first, we'll see that Kion's actually going out and creating a funding source. Again, if this is an area that you want to use in the flow, you can use this block as is, or if it makes sense to use inside of your other workflows, feel free to do so. You'll notice that what this is actually doing is taking some of those variables like the budget from that form, adding a description that we'll put on that funding source record, an end date, triggering all of that, what OU to attach this to, all that information from the form and all the information that would be required in the Kion API in order to create a funding source. We'll notice that once that's actually done, we can begin to create a budget object from that funding source. So we can use information from the form again to set the amount of the budget, the funding source ID that was created in the previous record, and then other requirements from the Kion API, like the priority and the project that we're going to be including that budget on. You'll notice then that we continue on to creating a project inside of Kion. Within there, again, we can choose what the description of that looks like, the name of the project, which we're pulling from the form itself, the OU where that project's going to live, again, from that dropdown in the service catalog item, the permission scheme ID, which is hard coded by default but can be overridden in the general settings, as well as that budget that we have set for this given project. As we continue on, you'll notice that throughout this, we're updating the requested item, we're notifying the end users that things were completed, and then we're beginning to hit Kion to actually create the account and get its status. So we're hitting Kion to create whether it's the AWS account or the project, whether it's the Azure subscription or resource group, and then we're just making sure that that account is ready to go, is accessible by Kion. It's always successful in actually creating that. And then we're converting the cached account to an account on the project inside of Kion, and then ultimately ending our record there. From there, the power of Kion will pick up to deploy all of your cloud rules and cloud access roles. And in the next video, we'll go into kind of what the end user experience looks like and the why to even do this in the first place. But as I mentioned, feel free to use any of these in your existing workflows or modify this how you see fit. You'll notice that you can grab and see all the data that's associated with that, edit the flow, test it out, and make this really as customized as you'd like here. So now that we understand what's happening from an integration hub and a flow perspective, let's actually begin to service that request that we saw on the back end. So we can see here that this rec number, 10,001, was opened. And if we go back to the administrative side of Kion, we've made this easy to look at all of the requests that might be coming through specific to this Kion catalog item. Within here, we can see that there's that request number. And within that request, we have a requested item, which is this cloud account and this new project. When we click on the requested item, we'll get to see more information about what's happening here. So first, it was open as the sysadmin, which is who I'm logged in as. It's in a waiting for approval stage and it's open. But here we can see all the different variables that were entered in the front end of the service catalog or service portal. Here we can see that there's currently waiting on an approver. The approver that was in here is actually the owner of this cost center. So again, I chose finance. Natasha is the owner of the finance cost center. And so this is the initial approval step in because I was systems administrator. So within here, we can see that we are waiting on Natasha's approval. We're going to go ahead and choose to approve this on Natasha's behalf because we are administrators. When we approve this, what's going to end up happening is the next step in our workflow. The next step in our workflow is to generate a catalog task. When I reload this form, essentially what we've done now is that we're in the fulfillment stage. In this fulfillment stage, we've been approved by both the system administrator by default, that approval skips since I'm logged in as him. And then we've gotten our finance level approval from a cost center perspective, and we've opened this catalog task. When we see this, what this essentially is designed to do would be a last minute check for your cloud team or for a cloud administrator to ensure that everything is set to go. Within this, what we're essentially looking at is confirming that all those values are correct. The new project all looks good. Everything from that previous page, we've chosen and shown who it's requested for. And from doing so, closing this task will kick off the rest of the workflow. So I'm going to go ahead and close this task. And what we can do is actually take a look at what's happening here. So let's take a look now at the request on the end user side. So first, when they come in here, they can now see that it's been approved and it's in a fulfillment stage. So next, let's go over and take a look at what's happening on the Kion side. When I come into Kion and take a look at my funding sources, I can see that I have a number of RITM funding sources that have been created. This first one, RITM 001001, is this RITM associated with the demo project. Here I can see that my funding period, as shown, starts in August and goes through the end of the year. I can see that this was just created a few minutes ago, brings in that description that's from my flow. And I can see that right now, $0 have been spent and $15,000 has been budgeted, which is exactly what was inside of that RITM. Within here, I can come into the financials and I can see that I have now created that demo project example under the engineering OU, just as I selected inside of that request form. And within here, I can already begin to see that my budget has been set for me, my financials are in place, and I can see that my budget will begin in September, just as I asked for it, go through sometime next year, which I had chosen February, and now we're in a good place where this budget will kick in just a couple of days. Next, I can see that there have not been any accounts yet added to this project. I'm currently in that account cache status setting that I was looking at within Workflow Designer, where we're making sure that these brand new accounts that are actually configured, if I look for demo, are sitting here in this accessible stage. So this is our account cache 39. It's inaccessible state and therefore will be moved to this project shortly. So when I look back at this demo project again, perfect. Now we see that the account was added to the project successfully. This brand new account, which did not exist before a couple of minutes ago, was created in your AWS organization, was attached to that into your consolidated billing, and was pulled into Kion perfectly now so that it can begin to be leveraged on this project. The exciting part of this is that Kion is now automatically governing and managing all of the financials, scanning this new account for all of the ways in which you can save money, as well as pushing down any of your compliance policies, access roles, custom variables, etc., that may be needed. In the next video, we'll get into all of the benefits of using ServiceNow plus Kion together to handle all of your cloud operations and FinOps.